Good morning. It is Team 9. We are doing the recreational fishing pond. I'm Kyle Allen, and my teammates are Jordan LeCompte and Edward Quintanilla. So today we're going to be, next slide, Edward. So today for the fourth progress report, we're going to be going over a project overview, going over our recommended solution. We will be discussing risks and mitigation. We have a slide for a failure modes and effects analysis, also known as an FMEA. We'll be going over an implementation plan. We'll be going over a project schedule, a summary, and looking ahead. And so next, Ed is going to start with our project overview.
Okay. For our project overview, our team has been assigned to study the feasibility of designing and constructing a recreational fish that we see in places such as Taiwan and many parts of Southeast Asia. And we're trying to bring that model into Texas. And then I'm going to pass the recommended solution to Jordan.
Review of our recommended solution for the project, we ended up choosing the hybrid solution, which will consist of half of it being indoor and the other half being outdoor. And the factors to come up with the solution, we choose the equipment needed, the labor needed, and the construction characteristics. Next slide. The recommended solution for the equipment needed, we determined that there will be 15 indoor barbecue grills, 20 outdoor barbecue grills, one entertainment system, which will be a LG electronic karaoke. And for bait and tackle, we decided that as the operation's running, the client will be able to determine how much they will need to be ordered. And for waste containers, there will be 10 total, which will include 5 indoor and 5 outdoor. And for the concession supplies, they will need 100 of 24-pack bottled waters per week and 100 of 24-pack varieties of sodas per week, including 50-pound mixed variety of hamburgers and hot doggers per week. And for fish cleaning station, there will be 4 total, 2 indoor and 2 outdoor. The labor needed for this solution, we determined that there will be a minimum of 12 employees, and each will be trained on how to work each station, and there will be a one-time training on the job given by the manager. And for the construction characteristics, we determined that it will fit approximately 200 fishermen. The indoor facility will be approximately 30,000 square feet, and outdoor there will be a 10-acre pond.
So next, we're going to discuss 3 risks that we have associated with an operation such as ours. The first would be changing and unsteady variable values. So this issue is presented by the potentially dynamic nature of these variables, is that they could be a source of miscalculated cost projections and profit estimates. This threat can be described as a random risk, as the client is susceptible to the changing environment, and there's really not a whole lot that the client can be done to avoid these variable values, and that's what really makes the risk so important, and it also makes it so dangerous. We've decided that these risks, the best way to mitigate this specific risk would be by documenting and monitoring prices and economic climates and operating at status quo with little deviation. Not doing anything too drastically economically and putting, or at least potentially putting the company in some kind of danger that they would, or financial danger that they would not be able to recover from. So like some of the variable values that change, especially in current climates, economically and politically: labor costs, electricity costs, water costs, maintenance costs, and input costs. I can name 3 of these right off the bat where we can see in our daily lives right now how these variable values have changed. Labor costs, with the discussion of minimum wage being changed, that would certainly play a factor. Electricity costs, we saw, what was it, a month ago? I think $9 a kilowatt hour whenever the grids went down. That would certainly be something to be mindful of and considerate of. And then lastly, the input costs, PVC, lumber, lots of common building materials are up 30 and 40% within the last 6 months. And there's nothing anybody can really do about it, but it is something that absolutely needs to be considered in the operation of running the business. Next slide, please. So risk number two would be a system or design failure. And so when implementing a new system, there's always a chance that the solution looks great on paper, but when practically applied, there's issues that make the system unusable. To determine where and how the proposed system might fail, the team has reviewed each aspect to determine how the individual components might fail. And we've also reviewed a total failure of the system, which is not probable, but the possibility definitely needs to be considered. So the first aspect of the system that we have reviewed for failure would be the failure of the pumping system, and it could occur from the pumps being overloaded, they lose power, or imploding, compromising the entire system. To mitigate pump failure, systems managers must be well versed in general pump maintenance, general principles of electricity, and general plumbing and troubleshooting. All things that would fall under an AGSM course load. Second, the nutrient delivery system is crucial to ensuring our fish remain in good health. The nutrient delivery system consists of spin feeders and pumps that introduce nutrients such as oxygen and other inputs directly into the water. To mitigate these nutrient delivery failure risks, we recommend the client have standby feeders and bubblers that could temporarily sustain the pond while the equipment is being repaired. And so a total system failure, the easiest way, and I say that lightly, to mitigate a total system failure would be we would have to scrap the original system and rely on the standby feeders and bubblers to get us by until a whole new system could be brought in. Certainly, that is not ideal, and the probability of that is not high. However, it is something that needs to be considered. And then, so risk number three is employee training and overall safety. And so to maximize the safety of the new operation, employees and managers, they're going to be shown the optimal techniques regarding equipment maintenance, client and employee interaction, client and client interaction, and proper employee and client animal interaction. This is going to ensure that the operation instills a culture of safety from the top down all the way to the customers. So to mitigate the equipment risks, managers will be trained on proper maintenance, kind of like we discussed in the last risk, and they'll be trained on proper maintenance and industry practices to best handle equipment malfunction. To mitigate customer risk, they will be rigorously trained in safely handling customers and fellow employees to also mitigate any conflict. Lastly, the managers and employees will already have experience in wild game handling. That would be a prereq prior to employment, but will receive more extensive training as necessary for certain situations pertaining to our the environment down here and dealing with certain animals. To maximize the safety of the new operation, employees and managers will be shown these optimal techniques, and they will know in the case of say an equipment failure, they will know how to repair the equipment without seriously hurting themselves, electrocuting themselves, cutting themselves, anything like that. They will be trained, and anything beyond their knowledge and training will be subbed out to a licensed or a more professional type training. Next slide, we're going to go over an FMEA, which is a failure modes and effects analysis. So this shows our three risks, the severity of said risk, the probability of said risk, and the impact of said risk. So first, we're going to go with the changing and unsteady variable values. This would be pretty severe because, like I said, there's nothing we can really do about it. However, it could completely change the economic feasibility of how this operation could be ran. So we gave it a 7 on the severity scale, 1 being lowest, 10 being the highest. The probability of this happening, I know I said it is happening right now. We haven't seen a price hike in values like this in quite a while. I do realize that that is the current climate. However, I don't think it's normally probable in terms of the last 3 or 4 decades. But the impact of this is going to be pretty severe in terms of, like I said, it could change the whole economic feasibility of this, and with inputs and certain things being, the prices being elevated substantially, it would be very impactful to the operation. Next, we have a system and design. Next, we have a system and design failure. So that is a 6 on the severity scale because, like I said, we would recommend standby feeders and bubblers, and there are ways to get around it as well as quick repairs. The probability of this is not very high. We're recommending new and up-to-date technology and industry practices to lower this and mitigate this probability. However, the impact in the long term could be uh, incredibly impactful because those standby feeders and bubblers are a temporary solution to sustain and hold the pond over while the equipment is being fixed. It is not a end-all be-all solution. And lastly, safety. Uh, Most importantly, the safety of the customers is the number one priority. So, a safety incident would be a 9 on the severity scale. With the nature of the business, there's a probability of 6. It accidents do happen. We can train and it can be run safely, but accidents absolutely do happen and they need to be made aware of. And that even if an accident does happen, we need to make sure that certain accidents do happen or don't happen really, and control what is worse or more severe. And an impact on customer safety, it's a 10, absolutely. So for two reasons really. One, it could ruin the business's operation. People don't want to go somewhere that has a reputation of an unsafe climate. No one wants to bring their family there, and that would hurt in the long term. And also, it safety incidents will open us up to financial liability and responsibility, and that is something that could potentially take out the whole operation as we know it. So next, we're going to go to the implementation plan and steps with Ed.
Okay. For our implementation plan, we'll discuss the full engagement approach and the time of the year and the startup approximation. For the steps for the implementation is that the client will need to procure 15 acres of land in Waller, Texas, close to the proximity of the highway, which will, in further detail, be already most likely a pre-built fabricated warehouse. And then we will do site prep, preparing the area for building where the area is undeveloped, and the structure and the interior build up. And then once the land is developed, we will build the rest of the facility, adding the pumps and the water. And then after installation of the equipment, it'll be properly calibrated using contractors. And then we'll use and then for stocking, we'll use various companies that have fish to be transported to the company. And then before we open, we'll be training the managers and employees on how to maintain the equipment that we have. And then I'll pass it to project and scheduling to Jordan.
Actually, I'm going to go over the project schedule. So in terms of, so we understand that this Gantt chart shows approximately a one in a month half schedule, and we do understand that that is on the more aggressive side. However, it is doable. The reason for it to be so aggressive is a few reasons. One, the operation does our clients don't make money until this operation is functional. Second of all, the summertime is going to be the busy season, so we would hate to open up and it'd be the winter time where a lot of people or not nearly as many people will come fishing. We'd love to get started, get operating, and be able to open up while business would really be booming and the market demand would be the highest for the year. So we have approximately 3 weeks for site prep, dirt work, and doing all the civil scope. Then another 9 days or so for structure erection, including the slab. Then we'll be commissioning it. That would be for approximately a week, making sure that all the equipment works as necessary. And it's important to make sure that every bit of the equipment is working properly before we stock the pond, because if it's not, we would hate to be dumping fish into the pond that is not sustainable. And lastly, after the pond has been commissioned and the pond is stocked, we'll train managers on how to safely and accurately operate and manage the pond. The next slide. So looking ahead, we have our final oral report in the coming weeks. Our poster draft is due April 22nd. The capstone event is April 30th. we've been in contact with our faculty advisor, Dr. Lacey, and I know him being the AGSM 473 professor. He really gave some valuable insight on specifically this one being kind of right up his alley from his project management class. But we have been in conversation with him, and he has been a really valuable source. So I guess we can open the floor up to Colonel McGee or.
PAT, you may go first. Some
Yeah, so
comments?
I liked your guys's your charts, your Gantt chart a lot, and then the FMEA list. I like that. I thought that was a really good use of tables and figures. I also had one question here. Kyle, you mentioned that the unpredictable economic costs could potentially be kind of a big problem. Do you think it's a big enough problem to recommend your client not go through with your guys' proposed solution?
Honestly, I would say, as in right now, I know people in the same situation. People are holding off on building houses. Their houses are being 40% more to cost to build right now, and it depends. The current economic situation we're finding ourselves in right now certainly will not hold forever. I think it depends on the client's kind of, I guess, other economic interests, depending on how badly they want to be in right now and understand or see if they're at least willing to incur these higher costs. It might be the best recommendation to wait for another, say, year and be ready for next summer in hopes that, say, lumber, PVC, most other building supplies and inputs will be down. In a normal and current world, we do recommend it and do find it economically feasible. However, in a time like this where we have seen just such a drastic price hike in materials and supplies, it might be recommended to, wait unless they're willing to incur those higher costs just to get operational.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. That was a great answer. Thank you.
I have a question. Well, comment first. I thought that both your risks and your implementation plan were very detailed, and that ultimately is going to be extremely helpful for your client because it's information that they can actually use to gauge the financial feasibility of your project, which is the actual quantitative information. So that was neat. And this might be something that you guys were talking about in like your background and stuff. I just don't think that our team was present for it. But it's just kind of a random thing that I was interested in. Do you know if people need their fishing licenses before they would come to y'all separately, or is that something that y'all can get granted where you're able to just allow people to fish within this facility?
So the way it works in the state of Texas, Texas Parks and Wildlife does not require fishing licenses on a private pond. So this would categorize as a private pond. So know that we will be able to get out of the constraints of Texas Parks and Wildlife in terms of temporary passes or any licenses required like that, which also makes the business model more enticing. It's not another cost that someone or risk that someone has to incur going to buy a fishing license prior to fishing. They can just show up and fish.
Yeah, pretty cool. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, good job. So I'm gonna ask some questions as a client. Overall, it's a pretty good presentation. A lot of information here, and I like to see numbers. And apparently, you give us a lot of numbers, so I can and it's easy to follow. I have some questions. I'm gonna go by slides order. So Jordan, you're proposing. Okay, can you go to the slide where you talk about facility capacities? About 200 people.
Hang on.
I'm
having trouble sharing it.
Okay.
Hang on.
Yeah.
And then, which one did you read again?
It's in very early slides. When you
Construction characteristics.
Oh, okay.
Yep. All right. So you say the facility is capable for about 200 customers at a time. Does that include both indoor and outdoor?
That includes just the indoor.
Just the indoor can hold 200 people in it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You said there's only 2 indoor pounds, right? How
Yes,
close
sir.
how close my customer gonna sit next to each other? Is it gonna be
We
okay
did
to follow the safety distancing?
Yes, sir. We determined that there will be enough room between each other.
Okay. Okay. Next one, Kyle, for your risk number 1 and 2. Risk number 1. So here the maintenance cost and input cost. Do you have an estimate of how much the maintenance is gonna cost me?
Yes, I do. I should have put it in there. It is in my my report.
Mhm.
Just didn't. So average an hour for maintenance costs we have found to be $26.60 an hour, and then input costs would be approximately $39.99 a pound for certain chemicals that will be introduced into the pond to promote pond health and sustainability.
And how often is the maintenance schedule? Do I have to pay 24/7 for $26 all year round?
No, sir. So maintenance would really be. Well, actually, let me backtrack first. We are planning on having the systems managers at the facility be able to perform the day-to-day maintenance. So this would be some call out that would be beyond the scope of what a systems manager could handle. So in terms of normal pipe bursting, uh, more basic things, we wouldn't have to incur that maintenance cost. However, certain other situations, probably dealing more on the pumping side, the high voltage side, would require maintenance costs to come out. So, I mean, I would even hesitate to say once a month, but obviously those things are not certain and they're definitely variable.
Okay, that's a good answer. That answers my question. So let's go to risk number 3. So as you mentioned in the FMEA analysis, safety is the first priority, and you suggesting wildlife risk might be one of the issue. So are we responsible for the wildlife risks? I mean, like customer falling into the pond or they've been engaging with wildlife. Is that our responsibility to take care of?
So I think first of all, it is our responsibility to promote a safe environment and try and do our part in terms of mitigating these safety risks. However, I think we do know that some people are capable of pretty much messing anything up, and then so technically we will sign off, or the clients would be signing off on their liability. However, I have seen before that liability waiver is not always concrete, and sometimes it's more a piece of paper trying to deter. So we don't per se, we're not liable, but at the same time, we still could be liable, or would still have to be in a position to be able to protect ourselves in case of some kind of safety incident.
Right. So I would like to see if you have a mitigation plan for this wildlife risks to our customer. I'm not saying. Mhm.
I'm sorry. So, like I discussed before, it'd be a prereq before employees to be hired here is having wildlife handling experience, I suppose. But like an instance for what I said would require more extensive training. We know in this geographical area, and especially being around water, the possibility of say running into a water moccasin, a highly venomous snake, is definitely there. However, with some more training for say 1 or 2 managers, this could be a risk that could be mitigated very pretty easily in terms of we have somebody who is trained to handle this kind of situation and safely, and that's how we would proceed with said situation.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you. That's all my questions. Good job.
Okay. you show that you have a lot of good content, and I'm aware of that because I review your assignments. But I think you did not put it out there as a presentation. So again, I know that you're thinking the client knows everything you are proposing, but my question is, what happened to your initial layout, drawing of the hybrid facility, and adding a little people in there? You have addressed Young's or your client's question. What will be the spacing? So layout of your facility again. Do not be afraid of repeat yourself. You have to emphasize that when you are presenting your recommended solutions. So that was lost in the presentation, even though I know you know that and I'm aware of that. Kyle, I can tell how much you know about this and how much effort you have put on this project. And I think because that you kind of were rushing into explaining everything to us, you were kind of very excited or very passionate. So moving along, you make it scratching noises that were kind of distracted to me. So just remember, you have a lot to say, and one of the challenges in presentation is how do I say everything I want in a compressed time. So work a little more on that. It shows that you have a lot to say and that you know everything you have done, but I thought you were kind of rushing and trying to tell us everything. One more question. So I'm focusing on the presentation because I'm not familiar with your project. The slides, Edward, the font size was too small. I could not see anything. So I just kept listening and waiting for you to tell me a little more. I believe the recommended size is at least 28 for presentations. So keep that in mind. The slides did not convey the content as you would have wanted. So that was a problem with the presentation. Otherwise, the content is there. You have made a lot of progress as a team, so that's great. You are providing solutions to the client. Just make sure you put them together better for the final presentation because it does not convey the tremendous amount of effort that you are putting. So I congratulate you that, but you have to do a better job putting it together. Okay? So otherwise, good job.
All right, this presentation was right on time in terms of its timing, 15 minutes. So pretty much what we're looking for. So good job there. The content of the risk, the risk, go ahead and get the slides back up there. We're going to talk about them. I felt the risks that you identified were good, but the mitigation, although you discussed it, did not really make it onto the slides. And I think your slides left a lot to be desired in terms of font size and diagram. Like Jordan, you know, you're presenting the recommended solution. If there's one thing you got to show in the recommended solution, at least it's some kind of diagram. And all you gave me was an equipment list. So that was pretty much lacking. I really like the FMEA. When on your intro slide, you're going to introduce this FMEA concept, which is something you got from probably HSM 473. Nice job bringing something like that into the class. However, the presentation of it was kind of long. Kind of the same comment I have about that I gave to Tristan in his presentation. It was interesting, but as the client, I'm wondering, well, what am I going to do with this? It seems to set a priority of which risk is the one I need to address the most. So make it that. Tell him that and give some action out of that. You may have said that, but all I saw on the slides were some numbers. Let's talk about the implementation plan. Let's see, this is something you talked about, Edward. Let's go to your implementation plan slides. Yeah, there's one on stocking. I don't remember which step this was. Stocking the pond. Tell me more about stocking the pond.
Well, when just stocking, we'll just be hiring a company to stock them.
But what are you going to tell? What are you going to tell that company?
I just like what we need and what the types of fish that we want for the ponds.
And what are those fish? Are you familiar enough with this project to remember what the fish are that you're going to put in this pond?
Yes.
Tell me what they are.
They're going to be bass and some shrimps and some catfish.
Okay. When you have a pond to manage, which is really the central part of this project, I'm expecting that you've done some research into how ponds that have to support fish. What are some key ingredients? What are these fish going to eat? Edward.
Well, basically, we'll just be feeding them these pellets that will be given to us by the stocking company. And
Okay, is that the way other recreational fishing ponds manage their fish?
yes. Yes, sir.
So if I went to the city of College Station, the city park out there, I know there are fish in there. They allow people to fish. There are lots of parks there. So is somebody going to show up every day and feed those fish? Is that what you're telling me is the state of the art in terms of fishing pond management?
Well, we'll just have an automatic feeder in the middle of the lake and in the corner of some of the systems that are indoors.
Yeah, I don't see automatic feeders at these ponds. Anybody else on the team want to help him out? What are we missing here in the stocking of the pond?
Yes, sir. So I would say, in terms of providing a sustainable pond and a healthy pond, that goes into my nutrient deliverance system, such as pumping. First of all, actually, spin feeders are not that's not the number one way of fish receiving their nutrients. There's plenty of ponds who never get introduced to any kind of secondary supplementation and still are a healthy pond. Naturally, there's bacteria, algae, other things that fish and the wildlife do rely on. However, this extra feed will be supplementary in terms of growing bigger, healthier fish that are more desirable to catch. This would be delivered through oxygen. Everybody knows an oxygen-rich pond or not everybody knows, I suppose. An oxygen-rich pond is a healthy pond. So with the pumps and bubblers providing additional oxygen, we are incredibly confident in the sustainability and health of said pond.
Okay, that's not a bad answer, but that's not really what I'm looking for either. Jordan, you want to give it a shot? What else do these fish need in the pond to survive?
We can stock the pond with smaller bait fish, perches and stuff like that for the fish to eat.
That's right. Stocking the pond is more than just about what fish do I want my customers to catch. If you've done any research at all, I mean, using Google, there's going to be a pyramid of life in the pond. There's the big fish, and there's going to be smaller fish, and there's going to be minnows and shrimp and other things like that. You've mentioned some of those, but Edward, you can't just stock the pond with the fish you want to catch. And so your lack of detail there kind of implies maybe a lack of preparation here, okay? So that's just, and that was just one step. Okay. All right, let's move on. Your Gantt chart was good. Go to your Gantt chart. I like the fact that you use some kind of Gantt chart software. The only critique I would have of your Gantt chart is to use days instead of dates. Can you bring your Gantt chart up there? Yeah, I mean, the days aren't really important. You're not really going to fix your client into, we must start on the 26th of April. So, and I don't know if this software will support that, but just have days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And this can be labeled 22 days or however many days it is. So a little too much detail with the dates was made it kind of cluttered. That's a good looking Gantt chart. That's exactly what they're supposed to look like. It shows some overlap. Nice job on that. The other thing about your risks is, let's go to risk number 1. And really, your client kind of hit that. These bullets are a little bit insufficient. There are no numbers here. You're giving me units, but one of the things in the assignment talks about a range of values. So if your risk is unsteady variable values, you need to tell the client what the range is. This could be anywhere from from $10 to $25 an hour. Give the client that information. Electricity costs can go from 8 cents a kilowatt hour to 15 cents a kilowatt hour in the summer. So more detail here. Water costs, same sort of thing. You've got the information because you told the client what it was. But if there's anything that ought to make it onto these slides, it's some numbers. You have a lot of white space over here, so you're missing out on some easy points there. Every one of your slides could have used more range of values type information.